20 hours. That's how long it took me to hit Lord with Jubilee. Was it worth it? Let's talk about it. What's going on, everybody? Today, we're taking a look at Marvel Rivals' newest hero, Jubilee. When she was first rumored for the season, I'll be completely honest, I wasn't that excited. After an entire season of Cyclops absolutely running lobbies, I was worried we were about to get another character that would completely dominate the game. Thankfully, that's not what happened. Jubilee ended up being one of the more unique strategists we've gotten in Marvel Rivals. She isn't your typical heal bot support that's just standing in the back line, keeping everyone alive. She has some really interesting utility, rewards smart positioning, and after spending over 20 hours grinding her all the way to Lord, I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of what she does well, and ultimately where she falls short. So today, I want to go over her abilities, her strengths, her weaknesses, her new team ups, and a little bit of her lore. And finally, answer the question, is Jubilee actually worth learning? Now, before we jump into gameplay, let's talk about Jubilee herself. If you only know her from Marvel Rivals, she's actually been one of the X-Men's most recognizable younger heroes for decades. She's of course famous for creating those explosive plasma fireworks, and has always been one of the more energetic and optimistic mutants. But if you're wondering why she looks a little different here, that's because Marvel Rivals is pulling inspiration from a newer version of the character. During the Curse of the Mutants comic storyline, Jubilee was transformed into a vampire, and that's the version this game seems to lean into with her design. Personally, I think it's really cool direction because it helps separate her visually from the classic yellow raincoat version most people remember. Now, enough of comic talk. Let's get into how she actually plays. Let's start with her primary fire because that's what you'll be using for most of the time throughout a match. It's a simple 48 round stream of fireworks, nothing too flashy here, but it feels really consistent. The damage is respectable, and the healing is solid, and honestly, it just feels reliable. It's one of those abilities that doesn't need to be overcomplicated to be effective. Her health also feels pretty balanced. She isn't tanky by any means, but she isn't paper thin either. With a good front line and teammates peeling for you, I rarely felt like her health pool itself was the problem. Now, I do think her 4-star difficulty rating is a little misleading. Usually when a new hero releases, I spend a decent amount of time in the practice range trying to understand how everything works. With Jubilee though, I honestly just read through her abilities for a few minutes, jumped in the games, and figured everything else out pretty naturally. She's definitely not a beginner character, but I don't think she's nearly as difficult as the game suggests. Now, her energy plasmoids right here quickly became my favorite part of her kit. Energy plasmoids gives you increased movement speed and a faster fire rate, which lets you pump out some really meaningful healing, while also making yourself harder to pin down. Whenever my tank was taking heavy pressure, this was usually my first ability I'd reach for. Now, Blooming Ball took me a little longer to fully understand. At first, I kept detonating it immediately, but after experimenting, I realized you get much more value by letting it charge before igniting. Once I started doing that, it became one of my favorite utility abilities. The blind can completely disrupt enemy pushes, and the fact that you can recast it gives you a lot more flexibility than I expected. One thing I noticed over these 20 hours is that Jubilee really shines when your team actually plays together. She's an amazing setup character. She constantly enables teammates, keeping pressure up and creating opportunities instead of just healing after damage when it happens. She isn't another prime Gambit level release that's going to completely take over every lobby, but she definitely feels strong enough to earn a spot on the roster. Now with her new team ups, I gotta say they're pretty okay for the most part. The one with Blade and another with the still unreleased Hood. Personally, I think the Hood team up is easily the better choice. Turning energy plasmoids into a hit scan attack while giving yourself self-healing just feels significantly more valuable. The Blade team up isn't necessarily bad, I just don't think it gives Jubilee what she actually needs. Now, let's talk about her weaknesses and what I didn't like. Over those 20 hours, almost every frustrating match had one thing in common: died. Characters like Spider-Man, Psylocke, Black Widow, Moon Knight, and even at times Devil Dinosaur in certain situations constantly made life difficult. While Jubilee technically has mobility and self-healing, neither one feels quite strong enough to consistently escape. Once someone commits to diving you, you're usually relying on your teammates to save you. And let's be honest, especially in quick play, that's just not happening. I just want to give a brief shout out to my duo who stuck with me during these matches while I was grinding for Jubilee's proficiency, and who was the only teammate I ever had that attempted to peel for me while he was playing his characters like Devil Dinosaur and Cyclops. Now, going back to what I don't like about Jubilee, I think her cooldowns are okay. I wish her energy plasmoids lingered a little bit longer. Nothing crazy, maybe half a second to 1 more second. Even reducing the cooldown of them by 1 or 2 seconds would make a noticeable difference. There were plenty of times where I would use Blooming Ball to stop an incoming push, only to immediately get collapsed on while all my defensive tools were still unavailable. Her ultimate is another ability that feels good, but definitely not great. I usually manage to secure an elimination or force the enemy team to back away, but when you compare it to the Golden Child of Marvel rivals like Luna Snow, Cloak and Daggers, or even Gambit's ultimate, it doesn't have the same fight-winning impact. It's also worth remembering that she's still brand new. Most players don't recognize her ultimate's audio cue yet, so as people learn how to react to it, we'll get a better idea of where it actually stands. So, was the 20 hours worth it? Honestly, I would say yes. Jubilee isn't the strongest strategist in Marvel Rivals by any means, but she isn't completely changing the meta, and she's not also weak. She's one of the most unique support characters we've got in a long time, rewards good positioning, and can absolutely carry games when your team plays around her strengths. I wouldn't recommend her as someone's very first strategist, because she still takes good awareness and positioning to play effectively. But if you've already spent time on supports and you're looking for something different, I think Jubilee is absolutely worth picking up. I'm also really interested to see whether NetEase gives her any balance changes in Season 9.5, because honestly, she's pretty close to being in a really healthy spot. Overall, I'd say she definitely earned her spot on the roster, and after 20 hours, I definitely don't regret the grind. If you've enjoyed today's review, let me know what you think of Jubilee down in the comments. Do you think she's balanced, too weak, or does she need some buffs? If you enjoyed the video and want to see more Marvel Rivals and Dead by Daylight content, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.